All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. I also want to talk about a couple of big pieces of data that are coming out this week. I think they're going to affect this week in particular, and they could have an effect over the next couple of months. So there's a lot going on with the Bitcoin miners. We had some gigantic moves last week. We had some gigantic news last week, so we're going to go through all of that. If you're new to the channel, we talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners all the time on this channel. If that's content that you're interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, if everybody could do us a giant favor and smash the like button, it does help the channel out a lot. So let's get to it. Let's talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. Okay, I want to start straight out on last week's chart. So this is week over week as of last Friday. You're going to see last week, some of the Bitcoin miners had spectacular moves. This is part of a larger trend we've been having over the last couple of months. We're going to take a look at that trend. We're going to take a look at a year-to-date trend as well. But let's stick to this week for now. You're going to see Core Scientific just this last week was up 64%. A couple of things happened with Core Scientific that caused this, one much more so than the other. The first is they had a takeover bid by a company called CoreWeave. That bid was at $5.75. At the time, the stock was trading under $5. That bid was summarily rejected by Core Scientific, and the stock has run up significantly past that point, and it is because of the other news from the same company. CoreWeave signed a gigantic deal, a $290 million a year deal that lasts potentially 12 years, which would make it a $3.5 billion deal for high-performance computing. So basically, Core Scientific is going to retrofit a lot of their data centers, 200 megawatts worth of capacity, which in terms of high-performance computing is astronomical. So this was a game changer for Core Scientific. This could potentially represent 25 or 30% of their revenue going forward, just this one contract that they signed. So you're going to see off of the back of that, they are up 64% in just 1 week. And this is a continuation of a run. The next chart we're going to look at, you're going to see over the last 2 months, Core Scientific is the best performing stock, and it's up a staggering amount, but we'll get to that chart next. Okay, next on this, TeraWulf's up 42%, and they had no particular news. So this is just a part of a continuation of a run on TeraWulf's part as well. Some of the mid-sized Bitcoin mining companies, I think, are making their move to start to catch up. There are 3 companies. Marathon's the largest by market cap, CleanSpark's the second largest, and Riot is the third largest. Those are multi-billion dollar companies. The smallest of those is more than double the size of the next closest company, and Marathon is triple or quadruple of most of the rest of the market cap of the rest of the Bitcoin miners. So I think investors are looking for opportunities in these middle companies, and you're starting to see that play out with moves like TeraWulf up 42% in 1 week, and then Iris Energy up 35% in 1 week. You're going to see Iris Energy has had an unbelievable run. They did something special this week, and we'll take a look at that on a chart in just a few minutes. I want to go to the other end of the spectrum here. You're going to see these bottom 3 companies. CleanSpark, Marathon, and Riot were the 3 worst performers on the week. Those are the 3 largest companies by far, so that goes to what I'm talking about. I think these companies are taking a little bit of a pause or a breather. They've run out ahead of the rest of the companies. They're so much bigger in market cap that I think investors are looking at these medium-sized companies right now, and they're starting to have some catch-up. So this is the first time since I've been charting this that the top 3 companies by market cap were the 3 worst performers on the week. I don't think this is the beginning of a new long-term trend. Of course, that's not financial advice. That's just my opinion. I do expect these companies to have significant gains over the course of the next year. But again, not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence on these companies if you're investing. These are highly volatile companies. And then in gold, you'll see Bitcoin up 2%. So that is worth noting on a week where Bitcoin was up 2%, which is a nice small move. Most of the Bitcoin miners were up anywhere from 3 times that to 5 times that, or many multiples with giant moves to the upside. So last week was a very, very strong week for the Bitcoin miners, and that continues a trend. That leads us to the next chart. This chart tracks the performance of the Bitcoin miners since April 16th. We called April 16th on this channel as a bottom for the Bitcoin miners, a local bottom. It looked evident, you can never be sure, and it's very dangerous to call tops and bottoms, but it did really look like everything lined up where all the Bitcoin miners kind of washed out and bottomed out on April 16th. So you can see on this chart, because everything is green, that bottom has held for every single Bitcoin miner. But more importantly, some of these Bitcoin miners since that bottom have made monstrous moves. So since then, Bitcoin is up 10%. Bitcoin has essentially been trading sideways for about 100 days, actually more than 100 days. It's been trading in a range. So it did move up 10% in that range over the last basically couple of months. But in that period of time, look at what the Bitcoin miners have done. You've got Core Scientific up 194%, Iris Energy up 153%. Iris Energy did have a huge announcement in the middle that I think is responsible for this run. They announced that they moved their target from 20 exahash by the end of the year 2024 up to 30 exahash by the end of 2024, and then 40 exahash by the end of 2025, actually the middle of 2025. So they got some massive price action on that, and they've had good monthly operational reports, in my opinion. Stronghold did announce that they are a microcap stock. They announced that they're putting themselves up for sale. So you can see on that news, basically the stock has more than doubled. So the market expects there is some value in this company. But again, it's a nano cap stock. TeraWulf, one of the middle-sized stocks, they are up 70% in the same period of time that Bitcoin's up 10%. And then you can take a look. Some of the larger Bitcoin miners, Marathon up 35%. They're performing well. But Riot in this period is up 23%. And while that is more than double Bitcoin, it's underperforming a little bit some of its peers. And CleanSpark up only 14% in that period of time. But it is worth noting that prior to that, CleanSpark was so far ahead of all the other Bitcoin miners. As of April 16th, CleanSpark was up significantly where the other 18 Bitcoin miners were all in the red. So I just think you're seeing a little bit of consolidation here in CleanSpark, in my opinion. And then two are lagging. Hive is on par, up just 10%, and Argo Blockchain up just 6%, but still all 19 in the green in this period of time, and some gigantic moves. But we have been talking about the fact that the Bitcoin miners need to make these kind of moves because in the first 3.5 months of the year, it was just a brutal year. 18 of the 19 Bitcoin miners were down. Some of them were down significantly in the 60s or 70% down. So now if we go year to date, all of a sudden we're starting to see a different picture. This is looking a little bit brighter. And whilst most of this chart is still in the red, we do now have 4 Bitcoin miners in the green. For basically the first 5 months of the year, there was only one Bitcoin miner in the green. That was CleanSpark. All the other Bitcoin miners were down on the year. We talked 2 weeks ago about the fact that I thought 4 Bitcoin miners could go green in the next couple of weeks. 3 of those 4 have gone green, and 1 is about to go green, in my opinion. So Cypher down just 2%, I do think could go green this week. TeraWulf, which was red 2 weeks ago, is now up 29%. Core Scientific, which was red 2 weeks ago, is now up 40%. And then you can see CleanSpark, which up until this week, CleanSpark was the #1 performing Bitcoin mining stock every single week all year this year. They just moved into second. Iris Energy, with the big week they had, passed them. They are now the #1 performing Bitcoin mining stock on the year, up 47% on the year. And then you'll see a lot of these are on the brink of going green. So that's really only just step 1 because we need these to do a lot more than just go from negative to positive. In this same period of time, year to date, Bitcoin's up 65%. And we expect our Bitcoin miners ultimately to outperform Bitcoin, not underperform. So you can see, even with the big moves we just looked at, there's still a lot of room left for these Bitcoin miners to run. And I do think that some of them will run. We've been saying on this channel that I do think there will be winners and losers. So for the last 18 months, I've really been trying to pound the table that, in my opinion, not all of the Bitcoin miners are going to go straight to the moon in this bull market. We're in a different world. There's a lot more competition, and I do think there's going to be some successes and some failures. We're starting to see the market price that in with 4 Bitcoin miners in the green, 3 of which are up over 40%. And then at the bottom of this list, you have 4 Bitcoin miners down over 60%. So I think we're going to see more and more of this. I think you're going to see a handful of Bitcoin miners have outstanding performance. And then I think you're going to see some of these that maybe underperform and maybe some of these that don't potentially survive at all. This leads me to the change I think we're going to be making in the charts going forward. I have asked over the last few live streams and in the comments section, there's a lot of nano cap stocks, 6 in specific, that I don't think people are interested in anymore. So we have been getting a majority of people that are no longer interested in some of these very small microcap and nano cap Bitcoin miners. And the 6 I'm talking about are basically these bottom 6, which are DigiHost, Stronghold, Gree, Mawson, Argo blockchain, and Any. So I do think probably starting next week, I'm going to take these off of my charts because they're cluttering up the charts. These companies are a small fraction. They're 1/100th the size in market cap of Marathon, which is, the largest by market cap. So they're so small, they're immaterial. It seems like very few of you are investing in that. I will say I do think there's potentially some swing trades or day trades to be made in those stocks, but we really look more on a long-term basis on this channel. So drop down in the comments below how you feel about that. I do think I am going to be taking those 6 off of these charts to declutter. That will still leave 13 Bitcoin miners that we will be following. So let me know what you think about that. Okay, before we get to the next chart, I want to show you this graphic. This was Friday's activity for the Bitcoin ETFs, the spot ETFs, and you're going to see on Friday there was $132 million of inflow, or 1,915 Bitcoin. But more importantly, I want to talk about this sentence up here. This is the 19th consecutive positive day. That is the longest streak. So this is the longest streak since the ETFs came into existence in January. This is now 19 consecutive days where the ETFs have had a positive inflow. So there is a battle going on. This continued buying pressure is creating some support, a level of support somewhere in the $69,000 range. But by the same token, there are still a lot of people going short Bitcoin, and that is creating a little bit of pressure on the top side. So we seem to be stuck in a range, and I think these are the two main forces. We have the ETFs, which continue very strong buying, but we do have a group of people that are shorting Bitcoin. So somewhere around 72,000, I think, is a key crucial line. If we can break out of 72,000 and get somewhere around 73,000, I do think a lot of these shorts will start to get liquidated and we'll see a move to the upside. But in the meantime, you'll see that we've hit this 71 to 72,000 range now 4 different times over the last several months. We've yet to break through, and I do think this is the battle that's going on. At some point sooner than later, one of these sides is going to win this battle, and we will see a move in one direction or the other. So for me, we are now about 18 months into a bull market, so I always tend to err on the side of momentum. So I am expecting a breakout to the upside at some point, but of course, again, this is not financial advice, and you guys know very well that Bitcoin can make moves even inside of a bull market. It is typical for Bitcoin to have 20 to 25% pullbacks. We've seen that now 5 times over the last 18 plus months. So we're just going to have to wait and see what's next. But I still personally remain very bullish on Bitcoin over the next year to year and a half. Okay, I also want to talk about 2 gigantic pieces of data that are coming out this week, and they happen to be coming out on the same day. So Wednesday of this week, before the market opens, we're going to get CPI, or inflation data, in the US. So this is one of the things that's been driving the market more than anything over the last several years, particularly in the short term. So we're going to get CPI in the morning, and the market tends to have big knee-jerk reactions to that. However, later in the day on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we're going to get the results of the Fed meeting. Now, nobody expects the Fed to change rates in this meeting, so in all likelihood there will be no rate change. However, this is a quarterly meeting, so you're going to see this article I've pointed out. The new projections on Wednesday will come in the form of a so-called, quote, dot plot, a chart updated quarterly. So on a quarterly basis, we get what's called the dot plot, and that is all of each Fed member projecting where they think the interest rates are going to go over the next several years. So we're going to see if there's a shift in this. Has the Fed's expectation moved since the last time we got a dot plot? Have they pushed out where they think they're going to start lowering interest rates? So we're going to get all this information in one day. So we could have good news in the morning in CPI, and then maybe a dot plot that's a little concerning that says we think the Fed's going to keep rates up for longer. So, it depends on whether those 2 key data points agree or if there's some divergence between the two. And I do think we're going to get a knee-jerk reaction, potentially 2 knee-jerk reactions on Wednesday, and then it will sort itself out over the coming weeks as more data points come on top of this. So just to take a look at the overall market year to date, this has been a very strong year and continues to be. The S&P and the NASDAQ are still at or near all-time highs highs as of the end of Friday. So if we take a look at this chart, this is basically comparing the 4 major US indexes with the 2 largest cryptocurrencies and then the 2 largest precious metals, silver and gold. And you're going to see the cryptocurrencies continue to dominate this year. Bitcoin up almost 65% is back in the lead. Ethereum up 60%, but silver up 23% year to date. Now, silver did have a pullback this week. It was down 3% on the week. But even with that 3% pullback, this is basically the best year silver has had in decades. Then you're going to see the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 through just 5 months of the year, a little over 5 months. The NASDAQ's up 14%. The S&P is up 12%. Again, they're at or near their all-time highs. This is not what people expected coming into this year, so that's why we're showing this chart each week. Right now, this year from a stock performance has been significantly better than expected for the larger stocks. But I will point out, if you look at the bottom of this list, you're going to see the Russell 2000 just went back into the red. So these are the small and mid-cap stocks, and this is the more risk-on stocks. So this is why these Wednesday data points are important. The Russell is driven by the Fed's decision more than anything else. When we are risk-off, these smaller stocks tend to get beaten down and stay down. So while the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 have continued to hit new high after new high, it's been over 3 years since the Russell has hit a new high, and it's nowhere near its all-time high right now. So I expected the Russell to make a big move this year. So far, that has not happened. We will see if the second half of the year will be better than the first half of the year, but that is the lagger year to date. So that's what's going on with Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, and the market. A couple of big things happening this week. So let me know your thoughts below. Thanks so much for watching, and of course, we'll see you again in the next video.